And my parents were really upset because I just said, I'm going to quit college and I'm going to move to California to be a pro bodybuilder.
They're like, what?
What the fuck are you doing? You know, my dad was like, are you crazy? Like, what are you going to do? And they were really upset with me, but I said, I got to pursue my dream of what I want to do. I know you want me to do this. And I said to them, I'm going to give myself 1 year. If I don't make it in 1 year, I'll come back to school. I promise I'll drop bodybuilding.
This is Mark Bell from SuperTraining Gym. SuperTraining Gym, the strongest gym in the West. And I'm joined today by Rich Gaspari. Really excited to have you here today. And I want to kind of dive right in. Rich has been a long time bodybuilder and a legendary one at that. Turned pro at the young age of 20 years old and has achieved some amazing things in bodybuilding. But what I want to kind of dive into is the transition from his bodybuilding career and also maybe some things that you learned in your bodybuilding career that helped make you a savvy businessman to the point where you built up Gaspari Nutrition to a $100 million company. So let's kind of dive in on some of that. I think at the age of 29, you had a serious injury.
Well, let me just first say, Mark, I'm happy to be here on the show. And be with you here, going through a workout.
Great.
So thank you for that. Being here in Sacramento, from like cold New Jersey to cold Sacramento, over the weather. But yeah, just a little bit about, you know, what happened to me. And I was a competitive bodybuilder at the age of, you know, like I said, turning pro at the age of 20. Really, I didn't have that. I did a lot, but I didn't have a long career because at 29, I got injured, was already out of bodybuilding. And I think it was almost like a blessing in disguise because I would have kept going. And what happened was it transitioned from this like golden era of like after Arnold, I was the first bodybuilder to have like striated glutes and have this conditioning that no bodybuilders.
First bodybuilder to have striated glutes. You messed it up for the rest of us because when I was prepping for my bodybuilding show, that's all my coach cared about. He's like, send me pictures of your striated glutes. I'm like, I'm not there yet. You raised the bar for everybody. You screwed it up.
That's what happened. It was almost by accident because when I was getting ready for a show, I was doing back shots in the posing room, and you know, the manager of the gym's like, look at your friggin' ass, it's fucking shredded. You know, so I was like, I didn't even notice it. And then I was the first bodybuilder to actually, if you remember, right now there's a classic physique category, and if you look at the trunks, they're much more bigger.
Right.
And the trunks that were back then were a little bit more showing. But what happened was because I had these striated glutes, I ended up cutting my trunks to show off my ass more, you know, on stage. And I was the first bodybuilder to do that, you know, because every time it was like much lower, so you couldn't show your ass. So I was the first person to really change the way people wore their pose.
That's why I had to slip into that tiny little piece.
You got to use like, you know, that bikini bite to keep it on your ass or go up your, you know, your ass crack, which you don't want it to happen. But you said about what happened. I went from this transition of being, you know, a top pro bodybuilder. Unfortunately, you know, I had an injury to my neck. I was doing shrugs, getting ready for a pro show, and I herniated 2 discs in my neck, which basically put an electric shock down my right side.
Was it immediate? It happened like right there on the spot?
It was immediately. I was doing heavy shrugs. It was already herniating it because I was feeling like pains, you know, in my neck and was shooting down my arms, and I was feeling tingling, but I didn't notice that I had this injury because I didn't even know what it was until I was doing these heavy shrugs. I turned my neck, and then boom, I felt like everything, just the world just ended for me because my career was basically over because my right side, I couldn't pick up my arm. I was getting ready for a pro show, and I was up to around 240 going on stage. My normal weight was around 210, 215 to 220 was my heaviest, you know, competing. So I was trying to basically go into that era of more mass monsters into the, you know, the late 90s into the early 2000s. When that happened to me, like I said, my world just ended, and I went from going from 240 down to about 190 pounds, you know, losing all that muscle. So while I was in bed, you know, saying, what the hell am I gonna do? I can't make money as a bodybuilder anymore. I was making money with, you know, being a bodybuilder, traveling the world, doing exhibitions and seminars. I sat there and said, I got to use now my head to figure out what I'm going to do. And I was always into supplementation. I was like one of the first bodybuilders to use amino acids, you know. I was using fat burners back then, choline, isotonal, methionine. I was back using, essential fats.
It's kind of fun to experiment with.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that myself.
I was one of the first to do gluten-free diets. I saw that when I was following a gluten-free diet that my body, I was known for being shredded, and that gluten actually did make my skin hold more water. So going on a gluten-free diet changed how I looked, and I was getting that ultra shred look.
How'd you stumble upon that?
I started reading about people that have gluten intolerances and that it causes them to like bloat and hold water and actually make you really sick. So I was reading, because I would read a lot of nutritional books, and when I read that I said, like, some people can have slight gluten intolerances. So I said, maybe if I have that, if I stop eating gluten, which I'm an Italian that loves eating pasta,
Right.
So I cut out pasta, breads, and I knew that you can never diet on breads. You'd always have to diet on brown rice, oatmeal, sweet potatoes. And if you try to diet on bread or pasta,
probably broke your mom's poor heart, right?
Yes, I didn't have
those
pasta.
Homemade meals, no, you can't have
but
them anymore.
I just stumbled upon it and I just started following. I saw my body change. So I said, you know what, this is working. So it was something back in the late 80s. Nobody even knew about doing a gluten-free diet. So anyways, when I sat in bed contemplating what am I going to do, I had a gym. I was doing nutritional counseling. I said, let me come up with my own brand. So I just started making this Gaspari nutrition brand just off the top of my head. I started going to manufacturers, seeing what products I can make.
This is like 20 years ago?
20 years ago.
Yeah.
So when I did this 20 years ago, I just started going and just learning on my own and what to do, and then just eventually just made this brand. It's funny, the brand started as Gentech, Gaspari Engineered Nutritional Technologies, and then I just changed it to Gaspari Nutrition. And I just figured out how to do it. It's not like, like I said, I asked a lot of questions, made a lot of mistakes, but little by little, I grew the business. My first year that I started Gaspari Nutrition, I grossed about $40,000. So it wasn't like something was groundbreaking. It took years to grow that business.
And being a pro bodybuilder and transitioning into that, what are some things that you learned from bodybuilding that really helped carry over? Because you were competing. I mean, bodybuilding is always super competitive. It's always very difficult. But I think you were around the time of like Lee Haney and some of these really high level competitors. What were some things that you learned from that experience that you were able to bring into business?
Well, the one thing is, like, if you're, to build a body takes time. To build a business takes time. You're not going to build a business overnight. It has to be a slowly progression of building that business and learning how to put back into that business. Some people start a business and right away they're overspending or they're making wrong mistakes. It's like you have to really be tight and be disciplined. Bodybuilding is a very big disciplined sport. So when you're starting a business, it's also about discipline, focus, positive, outlook in what you're doing, because you're going to make mistakes along the way. And if you make those mistakes, you got to learn to say, okay, what do I got to do to just continue and learn from that mistake. So the same thing in bodybuilding. It's a lot of times learning your body and how to build it, assessing your physique. I said when I was bodybuilding, I loved doing legs. I was super strong, but my legs got so big that I was disproportioned. So as soon as I, started assessing my physique, I was like, you know what? I got to stop training legs. I got to train my shoulders, my arms, my back, so that I can become more symmetrical. And that's what I did, more proportional. Where a lot of bodybuilders or a lot of guys that train say, wow, I'm really strong on arms, and they just keep training arms and they don't try to train their legs. So same thing in business. You got to look at your business and assess what you're doing, and along the way, just try to make, learn about the business, learn about channels, learn about, a lot of things. I mean, a business takes a lot. You have a business, you got to learn about logistics, you got to learn about marketing, you got to learn about, so many different aspects of the business, innovation. So to me, that's what's really fun about, me running Gaspari Nutrition.
Did it help to learn like who you're not? Like when you kind of saw guys coming into the sport, like a Lee Haney or like a Dorian Yates, where you're like, I'm not a mass monster like some of these other guys. I got my own niche. I'm good at my own things, but that's not really me. Do you feel that helped you a little bit in business too? Because it maybe helped you double down on where you're good?
I'm good at, like you said, it did help me double down on things that I was good at. I'm not the greatest at keeping myself organized. I need people to help me organize myself.
I'm guilty.
So I'm a dreamer. I'm the guy who thinks outside the box. So, but I need somebody to keep me in line. So I learned that along the way, that I need somebody to kind of help me with, my spend, or help me to keep myself organized. So yeah, my strong points are, I'm good at talking. I'm good at, marketing myself, and I'm good at selling. That's what I'm good at. So that's what I know that I'm good at. I'm good at relationship building. I learned that when I was a bodybuilder. When I started, my brand became an international brand because I traveled the world. So when I traveled with my brand, I was able to grow that market in various parts of the world. But it was all about building relationships with those people that were then gonna, because they liked you, they were gonna push your brand. So that was very important. So those are the things I'm good at. The things that I'm not, I try to find people that can help me in those, weaknesses that I have.
You said the first year you grossed 40,000. How'd you really build it up into a juggernaut, from that point?
Well, when I was making 40,000, I was, that wasn't enough money. The profits and that was maybe about 15 grand. What I did is just kept reinvesting in the brand. It came about in about 2 years afterwards. Then I started making about $250,000, and then $500,000, and then $1 million. But what I did is I discovered certain products. I had to discover certain niches. And at the time when I was selling products, I was selling, pro hormones that they were okay to sell.
Yeah.
So I sold some really big ones, M1T, 1T, Haladrol. Those were really big products that I was very different with those compared to other, supplement companies that were selling it. And from there, it just exploded. But I knew that was short-lived because those pro hormones were going to be taken off the market. So then I started taking the money the profits I had with those products, and then putting them towards other products that were going to be more longevity. Super Pump, Sizon, Myofusion, all those products, I took the cash and just built those staples for the brand, and that's when the brand just started growing.
It seems like you're really attached to the products, because even talking to you now, here we are 20 years later, and you sold off part of the company and then repurchased the company. Now you're the leader and owner, again, CEO, however you want to say it. But when I ask you about the company, you're still talking about the product. So that seems really, really important to you. Mm-hmm. What's the most important thing to you when it comes to the products?
Well, it's to stay on top of innovation, looking at the market and seeing where there's holes in the market. I don't want to be a follower, I want to be a leader. You talked about a product that I introduced was my Glycofuse. Glycofuse I brought to the marketplace because I was looking for an alternative for carbohydrates. There was Vitargo, the one I forgot to tell you about, Vitargo, Carbolin, and I was looking at these products and I said, isn't there something better? So I just went to a trade show, saw this cluster dextrins, and I saw that they had a lot of studies backing it up for helping, with athletes, anaerobic athletes for glycogen, storage. So I looked at that and I was like, shit, this is interesting. It never was brought into the United States. So I saw an opportunity to bring that, and I took a risk. When you're an entrepreneur, you take risks. I had to bring a container of this carb that was never sold if it could sell, and I brought it to market, and eventually it just started moving and it started selling. Now everybody copies cluster dextrins, and I was the one who brought it to the marketplace. So I look for holes in the market, and what I like doing is, as a CEO, a lot of times they're stuck in their tower, their their golden tower, and they're not really seeing the market. I like to be out there in the stores and see what's selling, study the marketplace and where there's missing holes or if there's opportunities. Sometimes when you're just like a follower, it becomes very hard because then it's just a price game that you're making a product that everybody else has. But if you can reinvent yourself or reinvent a category, it changes the game.
How do you go about ensuring that the products are of quality? What are some things that you've had to do over the years?
Well, you want to have a proper manufacturer that's GMP. You want to make sure that when you're looking at ingredients that you're using them in efficacious doses. You
Yeah,
just
that's
study.
a big thing for you, right? Is making sure that the dosing is, because a lot of times, a lot of companies they'll mix this mix mass of stuff together, but then it's like half the dose of what
A lot of
the
brands,
studies
a lot of brands do that, and the one thing that I'm finding now is that there's a lot of brands out there, and what's happening in the marketplace is that if you really have something good, it's going to be copied, and unfortunately, it's going to chip away at your sales. I was a proponent of transparent labels showing the ingredients, but unfortunately, because your market can be taken by like 100 companies, it's like I said, 100 companies can copy it, and although they're taking a little bit of sales, they can affect your product because they're going to say the same as your product. So I'll disclose certain ingredients that are important, but if it comes to like say a stimulant blend, I'll put that as a prop blend because I don't want people to copy it.
Yeah.
And if people are saying, well, you should show what's in there, it's business. I can't do that if it's going to, it's proprietary. Just like Coca-Cola, you don't know the ingredients of Coca-Cola. It's been for like, 100 years and you don't know the exact formula and people try to copy it. So the same thing in the supplement business, there's these brands that are trying to show this like transparent labeling and blah, blah, blah. And it just seems to be like, it's so competitive that you have to kind of protect what you have if you have something good.
You seem very driven. You have a ton of energy. We just got done doing a back workout, and we just went flying through about 6 or 7 exercises in like 35 minutes or so. Where does this drive come from? Is this something you've always had from the time you were a kid, or does it come from mom and dad? Or
my dad, I'm a first generation Italian. My parents came from Italy. My dad was a blue collar immigrant. He came to the United States with no money. He actually came from Italy, after World War II, back in the 50s. And they actually didn't let Italians back then into the U.S. because, it was after World War II and, Italy was the enemy and Germany was the enemy. So he had to go into Canada first and stay there for 10 years. And then from 10 years, he moved to the U.S.
Isn't it crazy when you think about how tough our parents are?
Yeah.
And then someone considers you to be tough. You're like, I'm nothing compared to my mom or dad.
And like I said, my dad started like in his 40s with no money. He was 43 years old, came to the United States with nothing.
That's cool.
And when I see something like that, that motivated me. And my dad always said, I moved to this country for you, to give you a better life.
Right.
And I took that to heart. I said, like, he came here with nothing. I'm a born an American citizen. Like, I should be able to do so much more with that.
Yeah.
So that gave me a drive. My dad was a big influencer when it came to, like, you asked me who my mentor was. I would say my dad was one of my mentors because he just believed that if you work hard, you'll get anything. Nothing's given to you. Nothing's luck. Nothing's by luck. You fall into luck, but it's hard work that makes you fall into luck.
Right.
So I just had a drive to really work hard. Listen, when I was in my 20s, and no disrespect to him, I was known as the hardest training bodybuilder. I can kick anybody's ass in the gym, and I'm in my 50s now, and I still train really, I train fairly hard, I think, and I've had 20-year-old kids that are like, holy crap, you fucking train hard for older guy.
I've trained with a lot of people, a lot of top-level bodybuilders, powerlifters, CrossFitters, and you came in here like a whirlwind.
So I like training. It's my passion. I loved being a bodybuilder, and I still love bodybuilding. It's just, putting those trunks on and that's not what I'm going to do, but I like looking good. I like having abs, and that's just part of my lifestyle. So the energy I have and the drive I have is I just have to, with any type of adversity, I always got to say that I'm going to persevere. I'm going to be able to go forward and just be able to make it. And that's what keeps me driven. Like I said, my dad kept me driven because he believed in me. And, it's funny because what I did, I was 19 years old and I was competing and I went into the nationals and I got 5th place in my first nationals. I won the junior nationals.
In 5th place, number 70, Richard Gaspari.
And I got an opportunity to move to California to work and manage a Gold's Gym through this guy, Ed Connors, in the Valley. I was going to college as a pre-med student. I wanted to be either a chiropractor, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I liked the medical profession. So I was going to Rutgers University as a New Jersey college, and I decided to take a leave of absence. And my parents were really upset because I just said, I'm going to quit college and I'm going to move to California to be a pro bodybuilder.
They're like, what?
What the fuck are you doing? You know, my dad was like, are you crazy? Like, what are you going to do? And they were really upset with me, but I said, I got to pursue my dream of what I want to do. I know you want me to do this. And I said to them, I'm going to give myself 1 year. If I don't make it in 1 year, I'll come back to school. I promise I'll drop bodybuilding. So when I moved to California, I had
a time crunch.
Yeah, I had a year. I had a year to turn pro. I went there with a passion, and you know, I was this tough Jersey kid. You know, I was telling you a story. I was training in Gold's Gym Venice, and I was doing legs, and I saw one of the. If you guys maybe not know who he is, but he was one of the Barbarian brothers.
Yeah.
They were like big in the '80s.
I know who the Barbarian Brother is, and everybody will know now because we'll insert some footage of the Barbarian.
So, anyways, they were just these big, huge guys. Not big legs, but they had these big, you know, huge upper bodies. So he asked if he wanted to train with me. So I had him go do a leg workout, and I just like killed it on legs, doing like 25 reps with 5 plates. And they're like, who are you? I said, I'm the next Mr. Universe. I was just this cocky, Jersey kid. So when I moved and I finally had this job as a manager in this Gold's Gym, I was just like this driven bodybuilder. And Lee Haney noticed me in the gym, how I was training. He goes, and he's got this Southern accent. He said, hey, boy. I said, you train really hard. I'm getting ready for the Mr. Olympia, because I had this Southern accent. He goes, I'd love to have you train with me. And I'm like, holy crap, I'm having this top pro. He wants me to train with him. And that year, I trained with him, and it was amazing because he taught me a lot, because I came from Jersey with more of a powerlifting, background. So everything was like heavy lifts. He taught me to really train the muscles fully. Something that, like, everything he taught me, ended up him regretting it, because I ended up going right up against him, getting 3 second places against him. Right. But he taught me a lot, and it was a great experience that I went there with I was just driven to turn pro that year, and I did everything I could and focused on doing that. And fortunately having him, I mean, I got to say, Lee Haney, if you know who he is, and he is just a spiritual guy. I was actually, to a point when I was living in California, I actually quit my job. I was doing personal training, and I was having like some, financial difficulties. I was going to move back to Jersey because I wasn't making enough money. And he offered for me to live with him. Wow. In his apartment with his wife, and I lived in this extra room. And he did this. He just said, like, stay with me, and you get ready for the, the Nationals and Mr. Universe.
The guy that had the less genetic potential, but then had the biggest heart as far as the drive and the determination, I'd have to say Rich Gaspari. Because when Rich and I lived together and trained together back in 1984, I had no idea that he would blossom or become a competitive bodybuilder as he has now. It was beyond my wildest beliefs, and I lived with him. We lived together for a while, or he lived with me and my wife. And here he is knocking on my door for the past 3 years. And he had a lot less potential than a lot of the other pros that are now competing. But he had a lot more desire.
I don't know if you know, back then, to turn pro, you had to win the Nationals, and then you went to the World Championships. If you did not win the World Championships, you had to go back and win the Nationals again. Today, unfortunately, they give like pro cards, like, like Skittles.
Sounds like dying in a video game. You gotta go back to the beginning. That's horrible.
So you have to go back to the beginning. So, like I said, I was very fortunate to just be driven to win that show. Once I turned pro, I was driven then to be a great pro, because when I turned pro, I was a light heavyweight, and I wasn't. I won the junior nationals, and I was in the nationals as a heavyweight, but I dropped my body weight. But I got too light, so I was basically, they said I was lucky to win the nationals in universe, and I wasn't going to be a great pro. But in 1 year's time, I went from like 188, and then I was on stage at 215 as a pro, and I just became this new pro, this juggernaut that just, ended up beating a lot of guys and, all the naysayers. But you asked me what my drive was. It's just wanting to be the best and proving people that I can be the best. My dad said one thing, is like right before he passed away, And I told you I had this injury. I moved back to my parents' house because my dad had cancer, and I was there with him, and I started Gaspari Nutrition in his basement. So it was really tough because I'm in this dark, dingy basement doing mail orders, and
Right.
and he said to me, he goes, you know what, son? He goes, I'm really proud of you because I see you follow your dreams, and I know you're going to be successful. And just him saying that to me just made me like know that I got to work hard. And he's up there watching me. I always feel like he's there watching me, and that's why he said, why have a drive?
Yeah, that's outstanding. I think we hit everything on the head, and I think that's a great place to close it out. I guess kind of in closing here, is there any particular thing that you do kind of on a daily basis, or anything you did when you were starting the brand? Is there any type of ritual that you kind of get into in a day, or a particular thing that you do in a given day that allows you to be creative for the brand, or allows you to come up with concepts or ideas? Like, do you listen to music? Do you meditate? Do you drink coffee in the morning? And like, when do these ideas hit you? They hit you when you're taking a dump, or they hit you when you're working out? Or
I said, what are the things I do? And this is, I heard from like this military general, is the first thing you do is you make your bed. This is something like,
there's a whole book on it.
Yeah, so the first thing I do in the morning is I always make sure I make my bed, because that's going to organize my thoughts. If I left my bed messy, I sit down in the morning and I write down, what I want to do through the day. So it just organizes, what I'm going to do. I mean, there's days that I already have myself set, for the week. But you're right. Like the one thing I always tell people is make your bed, because that kind of organizes yourself overall.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's Rich Gaspari. That's all the time we got. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Catch you guys later.
Great.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.